Welcome in. It is a live edition of the Northside Baseball Podcast. If you're watching via our YouTube channel, maybe our Facebook page, we are always appreciative for those people that tune in. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Whitmire. As always, we are talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. We haven't been on in a couple of weeks. Thought it'd be a good time to pop on as the bow kind of got put on the show for winter meetings in Major League Baseball. Cubs obviously made a move earlier here on this Thursday afternoon. So we'll dive into that. Maybe, what could lie ahead for Chicago, forecast or predict maybe some things that could lie ahead in terms of free agency. But we've seen some of the big dominoes really fall now, Jason. But we're going to start with the Cubs on Thursday. They agreed to a one-year deal with relief pitcher Hoby Milner, the former Milwaukee Brewer lefty. Kind of throws at like a weird slot, a weird angle. I'm sure you have some notes on that. Last year spent time with the Texas Rangers, plenty of familiarity with Craig Counsell. Of course, when Counsell was the manager for the Brewers, Hoby Milner was there for a little bit. So I can't imagine, Counsell gave the thumbs down to this and the Cubs said, screw it, we're going to sign him anyway. So I'm assuming there was some sort of cohesive agreement there between the brain trust for the Cubs and maybe Counsell giving it the thumbs up. And we know last year, before Hoby Milner signed with the Rangers, there was a flirtation with the Cubs as well. Like there was a sense that Hoby Milner last year might have agreed to terms with the Cubs. So there's a few different angles with this. I'll lob it in your direction, Jason. But one other thing I want to, store away in your mind before you give your take on it is this could potentially be maybe a replacement for a Drew Pomeranz, for a Caleb Thielbar, who are both free agents, as it is a lefty coming in for the Cubs. And there's a lot of moving pieces in this bullpen for Chicago. We don't know if Pomeranz will be back, or Thielbar, or Keller, and a lot of those names that are free agents. But they agree to this deal with Hoby Milner. What was your sort of instant reaction, takeaway? And then just feel free to talk about what you know about his arm slot, because it can be kind of funky.
Yeah, it's kind of funky. I like the deal in a vacuum. And I think right now in the off season, there's a lot of cynicism that can be had with any deal. It's like, oh, well, they signed Hoby Milner, but they didn't sign Pete Alonso, so we can't be happy about this deal. And I don't want to start from that aspect of it. I think let's take a moment and kind of just vacuum it. All right, the Cubs need lefties and they need a bullpen. They don't have a bullpen right now. They're going to build the bullpen. I would love it if the order of operations was always the best signing, the second best signing, the third best signing, but that just isn't the way any of this works. Sometimes you get your fourth best signing and they're the first player you sign. And so I see a lot of people out there and they kind of I think they hit the cynicism button immediately, like, oh, well, we signed Hoby Milner, but that's championship. And I don't think that's where I'm jumping off from it. In a vacuum, I think Hoby Milner is a good addition to the Chicago Cubs bullpen. He's a lefty. He throws with a lot of horizontal movement from a low slot. This is kind of a running theme with Cubs pitchers, low arm slot, horizontal movement. This is a Matthew Boyd thing. They signed last year. They signed Phil Maton already. What does he throw? Low arm slot, horizontal plane. And I don't think that this is an accident. I do think that this is a Tyler Zombro thing. For those who don't know, Tyler Zombro is one of the heads of Tread Athletic. He started to work in conjunction with the Cubs last year in kind of an unspecified amalgamous role as a pitching developer. And this year he's been promoted to the kind of pitching guru in the organization. They lost their minor league pitching guy, I think, to Boston and Craig Breslow, if I remember correctly. But Zombro is going to step up, and Tread Athletics is one of that and Driveline are kind of the two big pitching organizations for people. And we're seeing that the Cubs have kind of a profile of pitcher they like. They like pitchers who have simultaneously cut on their fastball, but ride on their fastball. So we call it cut ride. So it's a pitch that's going to ride up over the barrel, but also cut and move. And that's different than a cutter. So we're not thinking like pure cutter, but it's a fastball with a little bit of horizontal and upward movement, compared to other four-seam fastballs. Now, Hoby Miller is not kind of like a cut ride guy, but he is a low slot guy, and we can see that a lot with Tyler Zombro as well. That's kind of a thing. So he's a good lefty. He doesn't throw very hard, so neither does Phil Maton. And the instant feeling that I know people are going to say another 88 mile-an-hour soft tossing guy. But especially when we talk Phil Maton. Maton's one of the best swing and miss guys in the league, and he throws 92 miles an hour. Hoby Milner is not one of the best swing and miss guys in the league, but he's posted strikeout rates in the mid-20s most of his career. It did go down last year. It did dip. But I'm not super concerned about it. When we look at his pitch shape and everything like that, he's actually got really great shapes on his pitches. So they're difficult to hit. He's got a funky release. He limits hard contact. Great. He's in the 91st percentile in ground ball rate. We know that the Cubs infield between Matt Shaw, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, Michael Busch, this is an elite fielding defense. So he's somebody who I think can outkick his coverage a bit. He's going to be somebody who I think can prevent more runs than it appears he prevents because he's pitching into his defense a little bit more. And I think he just makes it a very uncomfortable at bat, especially if you're a left-handed hitter. I mean, this is somebody you just straight up don't want to hit against. And you can see that in his numbers. Left-handed hitters last year with a 224 WOBA against, that's nasty. I mean, this guy crushes lefties. 2 years ago, he had a 207 WOBA against left-handed hitters. Like, if you're a lefty, you just really do not want to see this guy come into the game. And having that there for $1 million for 1 year for $3.75 million, it's a good deal. I like it. Now, can Hoby Milner be like the best reliever the Cubs signed for the rest of the offseason? No. Then we go to a point where I still like the player and I still like the fit and I still like the contract, but I don't like the big picture. I still think that the Cubs are interested in relievers. There's still Brad Keller out there. You still have Pete Fairbanks, who I think Pete Fairbanks hits a lot of the kind of traditional Cubs, Tyler Zombro traditional Cubs kind of like pitch metrics and everything like that. So there are guys out there that can kind of fill this in. If Hoby Milner is the 4th or 5th best pitcher in the Cubs bullpen, I think we're doing pretty good. If he's the 3rd best pitcher in the Cubs bullpen, big picture, don't love it, but still like vacuum, I'm fine with it. I think it's not going to blow anybody's mind. But cutting through the cynicism, that's a good move.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. 2 other things I wanted to add on and then get your thoughts to that. 2 things I like about Hoby Milner as well, on top of what you mentioned, Jason, incredibly durable when you look at his career and his pit stops in Milwaukee and then Texas. And then, this isn't anything massive, right? But I like his ability that he had plenty of appearances. If you go look at his game logs with Texas last year, and we saw it in Milwaukee, where he would go more than an inning. Like, he's a guy that can give you that flexibility. If there's one out in the 7th inning and there's back-to-back lefties up and you want him to come get those 2 guys, he can do that. But if you want him to trickle into that next inning, he had plenty of appearances with Texas where I was looking last year, Jason, and it was inning and a third, inning and 2/3, 2 innings, 2 2/3. Like, he has that ability where it's not just, hey, get these last couple outs, or hey, we're just having you out there for 1 inning. He's a lefty, weird arm slot, as we mentioned, so a lot of it will be matchup based, but he has that flexibility that he can be stretched out a little bit more. Like, not all these bullpen arms can you really stretch out past an inning, if they rack up 15 to 18 to 19 pitches. He has given that throughout his career where you can kind of stretch him out a little bit more, which I think always, I just like that flexibility that he provides.
Yeah. Flexibility is always really good. Durability is always really good. You can't help the team if you're on the IL. And I mean, that's like availability is a big thing. So he's available. He's useful. I have a hard time complaining about it in a vacuum, right? In a vacuum, I don't. If we're sitting back, like I said, if we're sitting back here in February and March and the Cubs still haven't done much, I think we can have an issue, not with the Hoby Milner signing, but maybe the ambition of the team. But I'm not there yet. We'll talk more like winter meetings and like what I think is next. But like as of right now, I think he's really good. He's not going to add the whiff and the strikeout rate that I think we still need. I think that there are places that we can find that. As a sneaky place that I think that the Cubs are going to find that is actually in the other player that they signed. The only player that they added the entire winter meetings is Colin Snyder. I'm going to talk about him in an article probably tomorrow. I'm going to be writing it up, so look for it in the next couple of days. But he was somebody who just a couple years ago, I mean, literally 2024, had some really big strikeout rates. And it didn't work out well for him last year, but go figure, he's another low arm slot guy with horizontal movement. Like, we're going to talk a lot about guys probably with low arm slots and horizontal movements, and probably on something on the what's next as a little bit of a preview on somebody that once again has a low arm slot and horizontal movement. It's somebody that I think that we can talk about. But yeah, I think Hoby Milner is going to fit into the bullpen. I'm excited. No, I'm not like super excited about it, but it's a good move. And I think you don't always have to be super excited about a move for it to be good. Right.
How pumped were we about like Keller last year? Remember?
Not at all.
I was just like, whatever. And then it's like, holy crap, Brad Keller's
completely
incredible.
under the radar. And that's why I bring up Colin Snyder, because the other player who was recommended to the Cubs as a non-roster invitee last year by Tyler Zombro, who runs Tread Athletics, was Colin Snyder, who is a Tread Athletics guy. And yeah, it didn't work for him last year. It didn't happen for him. He had a bad season. It wasn't there. But 2024, I know this is about Hoby Milner right now, but Colin Snyder, I think if you wanted like an early clubhouse like guy that could be Brad Keller next year, it's Colin Snyder, who in 2024, I mean, we're talking not last year, but the year before, 41 innings. He struck out. How many? Sorry, I'm just pulling it up here real quick. He struck out 27.8% of hitters. He had a 3.52 xFIP. He had a 94 mile an hour average fastball. He's a good pitcher. In those 40 innings, he pitched really well. Last year, horrible. It didn't come off for him. His fastball velocity was down. His strikeout rate was down. He was not good last year. But you get him back with Tread, you get him back with Tyler Zombro. They're working together. That could be your sneaky Brad Keller guy who's in the 6th, 7th inning at the beginning of the season. And then, at the end of the year, we're talking about him in maybe a leverage space. I'm not saying that like I necessarily want to see that, but like it wouldn't be crazy if Snyder was there. And so like I'm not super jazzed about Hoby Milner. I'm not super jazzed about Colin Snyder, but you don't have to be super jazzed on signing day for these guys to play roles in the next season, to find out and figure out how they can kind of fit in a shape into a bullpen that's going to run through, 15 or 20 guys are going to see innings next year, and you got to build that out. So this is how you start building it out, with underrated value signings like Hoby Milner at 1 year and $3.75 million, Colin Snyder on a minor league invite. And we'll probably see a bunch of these guys throughout the offseason, but keep in mind that I think this is how you build out a modern bullpen nowadays. You have a few guys at the back end, and then you throw a lot of spaghetti and pasta at the wall and hope that some of it sticks.
He is Jason Ross. I'm Mitch Woodmeyer. It is the Northside Baseball Podcast. However you tune in, we always are appreciative for it. I think you hit the nail on the head, as we'll pivot. If we look back, a month or 2 months from now, and we're like, hey, Hoby Milner was the biggest move they made in the bullpen, I'm going to be like, I am not crazy about this. If it's like, if it's like, hey, Hoby Milner was like the third biggest thing they did in the bullpen, not the third best arm, but the third biggest move they made in the offseason, I'll be like, great, awesome, spectacular. Let's pivot to a winter meetings recap. We got to bounce around for a few minutes, even though it'll be kind of off the beating path of the Cubs specifically. There's some old friends alert, like Schwarber goes back to the Phillies for $5 and $150. I know Cincinnati and Pittsburgh were both involved in the bidding. Pete Alonso goes to the Baltimore Orioles. I think, Jason, the winter meetings recap, if we want to talk about the most pissed off fan base, it's got to be the New York Mets fan base. And maybe I'm just in that
you're not, man.
Of it. Okay.
My ex and Blue Sky, because I've got some people. Yeah. I've got some people who I follow. Kind of bloggers and reporters from across the sphere. Man, no, the Mets are upset. Mets fans are pissed right now.
Yeah, I've got a couple buddies who are Mets fans, and so I see their stuff on social media, right? Like some of the platforms you mentioned, but I also see them retweet stuff from other Mets content creators, content creators with a blue check and stuff like that. And it just like kind of, for me, it encapsulated it to believe like, oh, Mets fans are really, really ticked off. They lose Diaz to the Dodgers, which I think pissed off everyone in baseball, unless you're a Dodgers fan. They lose Pete Alonso to the Orioles. They traded Brandon Nimmo for Marcus Semien. I got to point out just one for you, Jason, because I think you'll get a chuckle out of it. So one of my buddies who is a Mets fan had retweeted from a Mets content creator. I won't say his name because I'm not trying to throw this guy under the bus and I don't know him. But he had tweeted out yesterday, Jason, on December 10th. He says, I think you'll get a kick out of this. He says, Pete gone, meaning Pete Alonso. Diaz to the Dodgers, and he's like, plan A done for the Mets. Plan B. What does plan C look like? Have to sign Bichette, have to sign Gallen, trade for Alcantara, and get Ozuna as your full-time DH. And I'm sitting there thinking like, that your expectations are insane if you think
No.
the Mets are now going to wiggle their way around 4 pretty drastic moves. Like, it wasn't like, hey, somehow get Bichette, or hey, trade for Joe Ryan or Sandy Alcantara. This guy's like, okay, plan C now. This is how far it has gone off the rails for Mets fans. Plan C is Bo Bichette, Gallen, Ozuna, and trading for Sandy Alcantara. It's like, man, if the Cubs did 1 or 2 of those things, I'd be over the moon about it. And you're expecting the Mets to do all 4. So my takeaway kind of from the winter meetings recap was Schwarber back in Philly, noteworthy, obviously. Good for Schwarber, good for Philly, and he gets his bag, and a well-deserved bag. The Pete Alonso move to Baltimore. There's some other ones we can filter in, but my main takeaway was like, Mets fans are really losing it.
I know they're really losing it. In many ways, I think each move in a vacuum, it makes sense. I know, like, kind of like together it looks bad, but like Marcus Simeon's going to help their defense. It also shortens up that contract. I think Brandon Nimmo is going to be an ugly, ugly, ugly contract in like 2 years. That's somebody who is already losing foot speed. He's already not a capable center fielder. He's a fine hitter, but like at some point the bat speed is going to fall off. He's hitting that age. I think they got out of a worse contract for a better contract and somebody who can play defense for him. Devin Williams, I think, he's probably not as good as Edwin Diaz, but Devin Williams is also a really good reliever. Ignore the ERA last year. I think it's blip. Pete Alonso, I know that they loved Pete Alonso, but paying $30 million for a barely first base, mostly DH. That's a lot of money for that. And like Juan Soto is not good defensively right now. So like you can play him in right field, but like what at one point is he your DH? So it's like, I mean, I think he could be your DH next year. You go and you get Cody Bellinger, you put him in right field, he plays center field sometimes. You move Juan Soto more to DH. You get a better defense at second base. You get as good of a hitter as Brandon Nimmo. Devin Williams is just a little bit worse than Edwin Diaz. I think they could be fine. I know that they're going to be upset. My takeaway, what the hell is Baltimore Orioles doing? Are they going to win every game 11-9? What is their plan? They
got Taylor Ward earlier in the offseason too, not to cut you off.
Yeah,
but they're adding bats, but what about the pitching? What are we going to do?
They will not pay a single pitcher. I feel like it's like that. It's like that meme with the Uno reverse where it's like trade. It's like buy a pitcher or pick up 25 cards, and they refuse to pay a pitcher. I don't know. I don't get it. They bought Brian Helsley, like awesome, but to buy a starter, man, your starters suck. You need some starters. So that Baltimore was a big one. If we're talking about like Chicago Cubs centric things, my big takeaway is that the Cubs are being connected to a level of hitter that I didn't think that they would be connected to. And that isn't me telling you I think that they're going to like get one of these necessarily, but they keep getting tied to players like Alex Bregman, like Pete Alonso. I know it was kind of spurious, but like John Heyman mentioned them as a potential Kyle Schwarber thing. We haven't really heard anything from it that they actually tried it, but I'll kind of add that one in there. We've heard that they've been interested in Munetake Murakami. We've heard that they've been interested in Okamoto. We've heard that they were kind of interested in this kind of a hitter that I didn't think that we would necessarily be connected to. And Eugenio Suarez, another third baseman, a lot of third basemen. And I know we have this kind of habit of looking at rumors and being like, well, they're rumors. You guys are just making things up. Triangulate these things. They're coming from too many places. You're getting it from Bruce Levine. You're getting it from Sharma Mooney. You're getting it. So there's your local crowd. You're getting it from John Heyman, who is definitely connected to like Scott Boras. You're getting it from there. There's a triangulation here a bit. And I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know if it's, well, maybe we'll trade for a pitcher and sign a big hitter. But I feel like it's not an accident, right? There's too much of it. And I did take that away as kind of like a really interesting thing. I didn't think that they were going to spend much on the offensive side, but it's kind of weird. So that's like my big Cubs takeaway. On on that. So we'll see what ends up happening from it. I don't know if you maybe were picking up on the same vibes that I was, but I thought that was really weird. It was just like every day it was like, oh, the Cubs might be interested in Suarez. I don't think they'd be interested in Suarez. Oh, the Cubs are backing on Bregman. Oh, wow, I didn't really expect to hear this much about Bregman again, especially this early in the offseason. So I don't know how you felt about that, but I felt it was like a really weird kind of confluence of rumors that were kept popping up on that.
Yeah, I think you pointed out correctly that there's so much smoke from so many different outlets that there's got to be at least a little bit of a fire, right? Like if it was just coming from, let's say, one or two national outlets, you'd be like, oh. If it was coming from one or two local outlets, you'd be like, oh, it's coming from national, multiple avenues. It's coming from local, multiple avenues. We'll have to wait and see. We know, they were close in some capacity to Bregman last year, just like they were with Hoby Milner. And you get Hoby Milner this year, maybe. I don't know what that means for Matt Shaw. I don't know what that means for the Cubs, third base, lineup, things like that. Yeah. And maybe it doesn't ever come to fruition. But yeah, there seems to be just a lot of dialogue around it with the Cubs, which is certainly interesting. And I think we can pivot to the Devin Williams part of this too. The last thing I'll say about the winter meetings recap is, on a whole for the NL Central, pretty quiet, which I think was expected, right? Like Brewers typically don't dip their toes into those waters in a big way. Cardinals, no. Pirates and Reds just like making offers for Kyle Schwarber. I was like, wow, initiative, like ownership, opening up the checkbook a little bit. And I don't know if that was just like a genuine, like they thought they could land it, or if it was just like, let's try to save face a little bit here. But it seemed genuine. It seemed.
Have you seen the stuff on the Reds and why they offered him a contract?
It was for like ticket sales, apparel sales,
ticket sales. I mean, that's the stuff. That's
crazy.
I fully believe that those are the reasons you're getting these things. I think both of those teams knew damn well that they weren't going to get Kyle Schwarber, and that feels like a big red we tried flag.
Yep. My last thing, winter meetings recap. Then again, we'll pivot to the Devin Williams. If you had to guess, where's Kyle Tucker ending up? Do you think Toronto? That's just Toronto. Like what that's
I think. I think right now, Toronto gets Tucker. They lose Bichette. That's my guess. And I don't know. Listen, Bichette might end up in Boston, and that's like that's where which pushes Bregman to the Cubs. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I feel like Tucker to Toronto feels like the one team that kind of has a lot of money to burn and wants Kyle Tucker. I know figuring out his market is hard right now, and I don't think we've had this kind of a muddy of a market for a number one like clear tier offensive player in a while. It feels like, I mean, the waters are clear as mud. Like who out there with $300 million is paying Kyle Tucker right now, other than that? Like, is it the Giants? The Giants don't seem like they're big spenders this offseason, after maybe picking up Devers last year in the middle of the season. I know they need bat, but are they really going to spend $300 million? I feel like maybe they've already spent their kind of like big chunk.
Yeah.
We've heard that, like, Boston's tried to get rid of outfielders, so it's not going to be Boston. The Dodgers, I think they could cycle back around, but I don't know.
Gosh, that would really irritate
me. I feel like the Dodgers are being connected there more so because they're the Dodgers, unless they're really all that interested in. I think at some point they're gonna have to probably not be so I don't know. Like, Toronto is my guess. I'll guess right now it's like Toronto at like $300 million, but I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. Where do you think?
No, I said Toronto too. That's just
you said Toronto.
Yeah, where it seems to be at least maybe heading in that direction. Northside Baseball Podcast, Mitch Whitmire, Jason Ross with you. I put Devin Williams on the rundown, on the little blurb there, with a question. Devin Williams wanted Chicago. He agreed to a 3-year, $51 million deal with the New York Mets. I think we can both safely say that that's an offer the Cubs probably never would want to go to with Devin Williams, a relief pitcher, whatever. But reports had surfaced that Devin Williams, if he had his sort of pick of the litter, he wanted the Cubs. He wanted to go to Chicago. Cubs weren't willing to meet the financial, threshold that the Mets had offered. So he ends up in Queens with the Mets, which isn't a big surprise. 3 years, $51 million again. But what'd you make of the reports that, again, from not just one outlet, from multiple different sources, saying that Devin Williams kind of wanted to come to the Cubs, kind of wanted to come to Chicago? Again, there's a Craig Counsell element of that too. With
Milwaukee,
I think
part of it may be just like a Craig Counsell thing, like location thing. Every year we hear these things about a guy turning down more money from somewhere else or really wanting to go somewhere else and not ending up there. I kind of grain of salt it a little bit on those things. It's really easy to say after the fact you wanted to end up in Chicago. Yep. Man, if you wanted to end up in Chicago, I don't know, take $4 million less. It sounds, I think those reports kind of sound better than they maybe really are. And I don't want to defend the Cubs here because, I mean, listen, the Chicago Cubs should just match the offer. If you really wanted to come here, $351 is a doable deal. I think Devin Williams is a really good reliever. I think part of that is probably the Jed Hoyer philosophy of building a bullpen. And I think part of that is the Tom Ricketts philosophy of budget management. And I think both are issues on their own right. I do kind of wonder whether or not the Cubs would even really truly consider that average annual value right off the bat if they really are trying to sign a starting pitcher. And I'll talk that more in what's next. But if you are going to sign a starting pitcher to $20-25 million, you have $50 million left. Now they have 45 million, 44 million, give or take, or 46 million, give or take with Milner in. Are they going to spend 16 of that on Devin Williams? And probably not. They need a starting pitcher. Are they going to spend 16 of their 50 on that? They don't even have really enough money at that point for a starting pitcher and a hitter and the rest of their bullpen. So I just don't. I think it really kind of boils this down to a couple things, and you can believe what you want to, because I don't know what to believe right now. I think we either have to believe a few things, and I'm going to shout out Bert's on this one from Northside Baseball, because he kind of broke this down, and I think he kind of nailed it. So shout out Bert's on this one. I'm stealing your idea. But he kind of said, like, one of these things has to be true, and it's either A, the Cubs have more money than we realize to spend. B, the Cubs are going to kind of cheap out on one thing, right? They're just going to super cheap out on the bullpen, or they're going to super cheap out on the hitter, or they're going to super cheap out on the starting pitcher, or like there's like a really big trade like sitting here that we just kind of don't see is coming. And you can kind of start to feel about this how you want to. I really don't know yet. I think we're kind of in this like weird space where I think a lot of us are kind of waiting for the first shoe to drop in the offseason. Not that Phil Maton or Hoby Milner or like these guys like aren't moves, but I think the first big move, whether that's the trade, whether that's a free agent, like when that shoe drops, I think we'll start to get a little bit better of an idea. I think we'll definitely see it on the second shoe. I think those two shoes are the thing, and they're going to kind of go with each other. But I do think it's kind of interesting to see like how the Cubs are operating. So, I don't know about the Devin Williams thing. Like I said, I think ultimately it's a grain of salt type of a thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would have loved him though. He's a great pitcher.
Yeah, agreed. What's next? We'll finish up with that, and I'll ask you, what's next? What are you gonna forecast here for the Cubs?
I think that if you were gonna write a start of the offseason that ended with the Chicago Cubs signing Tetsuya Imai, this is the exact start of the offseason that it would be. The Cubs would jump the market the Cubs would find some way to save some money in their bullpen. And by moving Andrew Kittredge and his $9 million out and getting a similar-ish reliever in Phil Maton in for $1.5 million less in terms of annual value, they've done that. They've found some value relievers in Colin Snyder, who, I think right now, he's not on the 40-man right now, but I think he's got an inside track to it at some point. Hoby Milner, $3.75 million. What else did they do during the winter meetings? Nothing. Not one thing. Not one thing did they do. They didn't even sign. They didn't even take somebody in the Rule 5 draft. And I'll kind of bring that up here in a moment on the opposite end of what could be next. But this kind of sets that up. We've been connected to Tatsuya Imai a bunch, and I know we're hearing smoke on Alex Bregman, but sometimes things are wrong. And if we look, there is they met with according to a report, they met with Pete Alonso, and if you want to. I mean, I'm going to go down kind of a conspiracy rabbit hole here for a moment. But But Pete Alonso's agent is Scott Boras. Alex Bregman's agent is Scott Boras. Tetsuya Imei's agent is Scott Boras. Zach Gallen's agent, who they were connected to, who they were Bob Nightingale, all-time epic mess up of having contract details of a deal that didn't happen because Zach Gallen was in the Caribbean getting married. All-timer from Nightingale is a Scott Boras agent. So if the Cubs are going to meet with Tetsuya Imei at the winter meetings, and they don't want it let out there that they met with Imei, maybe you say you met with Bregman. Maybe you say you met with Alonso. Maybe you say you met with Gallen. And these are how those leaks are getting out. Because I said it at the very beginning of the offseason. I thought Imei was like tailor-made. It's like that's like coded for the Cubs. You don't have to give up a QO. He throws it a low arm slot. Tyler Zombro special. He has this weird flat kind of fastball. He's got the funkiest slider on the planet. The Cubs love funk. They just signed Hoby Milner, who has a -6 arm angle. The Cubs love this kind of stuff. And Tetsuya Imei is sitting out there, and you don't want it to know that they're out there on him. The Cubs did something similar to this when they signed Seiya Suzuki. It was, there was no smoke on that at all. And all of a sudden, it looked like he was going to the Padres. Everybody is Padres. Signs with the Cubs out of nowhere. And I think the Cubs move kind of quietly, especially on their NPB front. So if I was guessing what's next, and I don't think it's going to be next tomorrow, but I do think the Imei signs next week somewhere. My guess is right now, if we were kind of ranking what's going to happen, I would say Imei is the guy I think that I would predict next. If it isn't Imei, I think it's Michael King. I think they cycle back to Michael King on the back end of that. But I would say that, and I know I'm doing a little bit of conspiracy theory in here on the Scott Boras thing, and I could be way off, and I'm fine with that. But I don't think that it's an accident that they didn't do anything at the winter meetings. The one thing I do find is really weird, though, if you want to talk about what I don't really understand, I don't understand why they have 9 open spots on their 40-man right now. They have 3 more slots than any other team. There's no reason to have this many slots unless you're going to add 9 Major League Baseball players or 9 players who you could see play Major League Baseball next year between now and the end of the offseason. And they didn't even take a Rule 5 guy. And man, that's shocking. I am very shocked by that. So, I mean, maybe it's like trades, maybe it's a lot of signings. I don't know. I still cycle back to the concept that I think that it's Tetsuya Imei. And I know that people are going to say, well, the Cubs don't spend $150 million on pitchers. There's very rarely a 27-year-old starting pitcher who's this jet-coded on the market. So I'll go ahead and I'll say it right now. I do think that next week they're going to sign Tetsuya Imei. I'll guess it's something like 6 or 7 years at like $20 to $24 million annual value. They'll throw on the extra posting fees. It's going to come out to something around $150 million on it. That's what my prediction is. And I know I'm kind of going out there, and that's a big one, but that's going to be my what's next.
My only other question for you: where would this Cubs rotation, as it currently sits, and obviously we know Justin Steele won't be ready for the start of the season, where would he slot into that rotation?
So here's another reason why I think Imei. I think Imei because of Justin Steele. So if you look at the Chicago Cubs rotation right now, you have Cade Horton, who has had a Tommy John surgery. The Cubs have kind of treated him a little bit with kid gloves on his arm, fractured his rib end of the season. Matthew Boyd has had Tommy John surgery. He's had an injury history. Shota Imanaga, velocity down last year, got hurt. Justin Steele coming back from Tommy John brace. Tetsuya Imei, 5'10", 175 pounds, dripping wet. That's 5 of your starting pitchers right there. If you sign Imei, add in Jameson Taillon, and you have 6 starting pitchers. I think it's a hybrid 6-man rotation.
Once Steele returns is what you're saying.
Yeah. And the reality is that the Cubs are also going to have pitchers who are going to be hurt. If you think all 6 of those pitchers are going to be healthy the second that Justin Steele comes back, listen, I got a bridge to sell you. It's not going to happen. But I think the overall vision is that I have 6 starting pitchers. There's going to be times when I have all 6 starting pitchers. How do I give players coming over from Japan like Tatsuya Imai extra time? Well, I've got Justin Steele coming back in the middle of the season. How do I ensure that Shota Imanaga's velocity is up? There was a great Twitter thread out there by one of the former Driveline guys. It's phenomenal. I posted it on my Facebook, on my Twitter. I posted it on my Blue Sky. It's phenomenal, but it breaks down basically like Shota Imanaga, when his fastball is 91.5 miles an hour, he's a great pitcher, like top 30 in baseball. When it's below that, he's not getting the pop-ups. He's giving up home runs. He's far more hittable, and it doesn't play off his slider. He's not a good pitcher. How do you get that velocity up? One way that you get it up, you pitch less. How do you pitch less? You have 6 guys. You pitch less. You throw harder. So again, I think it kind of just fills in with my what's next. I think the perfect vision that the Cubs have, the perfect vision is that you have 6 starters that you really feel comfortable with, 5 of who have some sort of recent injury history that you can kind of build those innings out, and you can kind of separate them out just a little bit. And Imai doesn't have any injury history. I should say 4 with injury history, 1 who's coming over from Japan and will be asked to pitch a little bit more than normal. And it isn't a big person to begin with. That's again, I'm reading tea leaves here. I could be completely off. Nobody's told me anything. I'm looking through the glass, and I just keep coming back to it. And I understand I'm biased. I really like Tetsuya Imai. I think he's really, really good. But that's my feeling. What do you think's next, Mitch? What do you got? What's your prediction?
I don't know if I have like a prediction on a name. I'll run with what you're going with because I like how it sounds. I will say I'm slightly offended, Jason, that you failed to mention, hey, and you know what, Mitch, with that rotation, you're ready for that July, August, early September part where Colin Ray gets penciled into that 5 spot when there's an injury and Colin Ray is on the back end of the rotation, because I'm sure that's going to happen again. We've talked about Colin Ray. We talked about Colin Ray a lot last year as he kind of fluctuated bullpen rotation. Of course, I'm being facetious when I say I'm offended by it. But yeah, Colin Ray is going to be in that rotation at some point in time next year. I'd feel pretty maybe it's a 2, 3, 4 start span. Maybe it's a 10, 11 start span. But I kind of like that they brought him back for that 1 year, and he's kind of one of those hybrid arms that they can use. I'll roll with your MI because you brought him up on a couple of occasions this offseason, and you've convinced me on him. But yeah, I don't know. I still, despite some of the rumblings about a bat, I feel like I'd be pretty, not in a bad way, Jason. I'd be pretty surprised if like Bregman landed with the Cubs, or if they went out and they focused on a bat. I just really, really see them focusing on a starting arm, as far as like, hey, here's the Cubs' big splash that they made. I would see it being as a starting arm, whether that's free agency in the form of a Mai or someone else, whether that's a trade for like a Mackenzie Gore, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, whatever. When we look back on this offseason, I really have that gut feeling that the big move for the Cubs, however you want to quantify the big move as, I feel like it's going to be for a starting arm. So that's kind of what I think would be next. And if it's Imai, it's Imai. That's fine.
Yeah, I just get the feeling that it's Imai, or at least that's what their plan is. I think right now their checklist is Imai. Will they actually get him? I don't exactly know. I can't promise you that they will. But if you want to sign the biggest Japanese player on the market this offseason, again, perfect setup. Dodgers don't need a pitcher, not interested. Yankees don't need a pitcher. They're not involved here. The Seattle Mariners, their pitching staff's great. They're not really involved here. San Francisco Giants don't seem like they're spending a lot of money. The Boston Red Sox already traded for Sonny Gray. You kind of like go down on like all of the big hitters on like who here signs Japanese players? Who here appeals to a Japanese player? Who here has the money to throw $150 million down at a player like that? And there aren't a lot of options. I mean, you got the Baltimore Orioles. They could jump in here. They're splashing money left and right. But as I've said, I don't think they seem to not care at all about pitching. So maybe they won't.
They don't care about it.
It just feels like right now, like this is like the guy. Like I feel like it is. I feel like it's the guy. I also fully expect next week to sit here and be like, yeah, the Cubs signed some sort of mid-rotation pitcher, or they traded for Edward Cabrera, because there's rumors out there that they're interested in Edward Cabrera. There's if they do sign Bregman, they might trade for Mackenzie Gore. I think there's lots of pathways. I just have this sneaking suspicion internally in the Cubs front office, it's been Imai It's kind of always been Imai. I felt like right off the bat that he was the guy that the Cubs would really like. And I think and again, I could just be finding this because I also want Imai, but if 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 I was going to write up like how would the Cubs winter meetings look if that's what their plan was, and we knew that Imai wasn't going to sign there because he was going to start meeting with teams, this is kind of exactly what I would have expected it to look like. So, yeah, I'll put my name out there. I think on it. I think it's Imai, and I think it happens before the end of next week. Whatever the weekend is next weekend, not this upcoming like Saturday, Sunday, but the one following, like in the next 7 or 8 days, I think it happens. That's what I'll predict.
Anything else you want to wrap up on?
No, I'm excited about the first shoe to drop. I think that'll be fascinating. The Cubs seem to be connected to a lot of different things. That's very Jed-like. So I think once the first shoe drops, we'll have a pathway. If it's sign a free agent, if it's trade for a player, I think we'll start to be able to figure out what's coming next. And that's what I'm really excited about. I want to see what the first move is. Is it sign the pitcher? Is it trade for a pitcher? If it's trade for a pitcher, it's Alex Bregman maybe coming back behind him. So yeah, I'm excited for the first shoe to drop, and we'll be live when that happens. Yep. Yeah, we'll be live when that happens.
We'll get an instant reaction up as soon as that first big move for the Cubs is made. The next move for the Cubs is made. We'll certainly get a podcast launched out there for you guys. For now, we're signing off. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Widmeyer. This has been another edition of the Northside Baseball Podcast.